Why are high places, mountain hilltops, are given so much reverence? And what is the difference between Mount Sinai and Mount Zion?
Okay, I think that chart is there. If, you could probably at leisure go through it. We'll share the PPT with you. But let me answer the first part of the question. I don't think high places are given much reverence per se, in a very broad and generic sense. In fact, high places, mountains, were centers of pagan spirituality that we would read, right? And Jerusalem happens to be a city on a hill. And somehow people have always associated a mountaintop with, a kind of a proximity with God, and in one sense, if you are somebody who treks and you go on top of a mountain, you feel on top of the world, you feel in a figurative sense closer to the clouds and closer to God or heaven that is beyond the clouds. That's a general way of thinking and processing. But however, in the Old Testament, these high places were places where pagan worship actually thrived. And all the Asherah poles and all the altars to Baal and all, the altars to Ashtaroth and all of that were on the mountains. And so people would climb a mountain, go up to the altars that they had built on top of the mountain, and they would sacrifice there on top. And that's why Psalm 121 says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? Does my help come from the hills? No, my help comes from the maker of not just the hills, but the heavens and the earth. And so these were places of pagan worship. These were places of sacrifice. These were places of prostitution, which was part of their worship practices, pagan worship practices. And there is on one side the idea of high places being associated with pagan worship and the demonic. On another side, there is a parallel in Jerusalem, which is a city on a hill, which is Zion, the city of God himself, okay? Mount Zion. And even again, when you look at Moses, when you look at, at Mount Horeb, and when Jesus speaks at the Olivet Discourse and Mount Tabor and so on and so forth, there are these ideas of mountain, and the transfiguration of Jesus happens on top. And so I think the idea of going away to a place that all by yourself for a deeper connection, intimacy with God, cutting yourself off from the earthy things that so distract you, so pull you away, could be seen as an idea of spirituality associated with the mountains. I don't know if that is why many of the Christian group organizes Christian camps, oftentimes on retreats on in hill stations, and we are at a spiritual high while we are doing the retreats, and as we are coming down, our spiritual favor seems to be fizzing out. So the idea of mountain perhaps conveys proximity, with God in the idea of God's presence that the people, the ancients had. And but clearly know that these high places were places of demonic worship and pagan religion. But of course, Mount Zion and even Calvary, so it was a hill, and the entire topography of Israel has a lot of hills, actually speaking. And so there's good, bad, and ugly in it. But in the Old Testament, predominantly, these were places that were defiled. And there are also places that were holy and sacred where God met with his people. So that's a little overview of hills and mountains and spirituality. Yeah.